Welcome back to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta. Don't forget, we are now on Roku. So if you have an Amazon Fire Stick, you can catch all the Locked On Sports Atlanta shows on Roku TV. So we're very excited to be on that platform as well. Let's continue the Atlanta Falcons discussion with my good friend from ESPN, ESPN.com. Michael Rothstein joins us here on A to Z. Mike, good morning. Welcome. It certainly has been a fun 24, 36 hours as a Falcons reporter, I'd say the least.
I mean, whatever. I'm used to this by now, covering the Lions for 8 years. This is nothing new when you've been doing this for covering the NFL for 10 years, covering sports for 20. I'm probably the only reporter, and Mark, you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I'm probably the only reporter that when Arthur Smith, went off a little bit on Sunday, kind of just shrugged and said, okay, sure, moving on.
That's Patricia, so that's a whole different level of
it's not even that. I mean, I don't take a lot of times what coaches say right after games at true face value, especially in the NFL and in college football when I cover college football, because there are limited opportunities. It is a job that, while I would argue that their coaching shelf life is longer in terms of, you look at NBA teams, you look at NHL, you look at baseball, you look at premiership, like dudes get fired or sacked or whatever word you want to call it, sometimes less than a season in. The NFL, very rarely do you see it happen before 2 years. But because there's so few opportunities, the pressure ratchets up. And listen, that was a game that, frankly, the Falcons should have won. And right. I can understand why Arthur Smith was frustrated, and I can understand why he was annoyed, and I can understand also that he was probably using some of that messaging not for anyone in the media or even the fans, but to his players, of just saying, listen, yeah, it didn't work, but it's not like their schedule gets easier here.
And again, to that point, reminding his team that they were, quote, buried by the media and all these rankings in a game that they should have won is a way of saying, you're validating that narrative by the way we played in the fourth quarter, like almost sticking it to them in a sense, in a backhanded way. I could sort of see that. And I also sort of see, we talked a little bit about this too as well. It might have been, and if it was intentional, it might have been sort of a wry plan from Arthur Smith to take the focus off of the failures in the fourth quarter and put it on the post-game press conference, right? Like it almost gave his players a little bit of a pass, because guys like me and other people in the Atlanta media spent more of the focus on what he said after the game than actually what unfolded in the fourth quarter, which was 213 yards, 17 points in 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
Right, exactly. Except, by the way, and to that point a little bit, a lot of what I've heard in the last 48 hours has been, oh, they went soft defensively. Oh, they did this. Oh, they did that. No. That's actually false, by the way, because they blitzed 4 times out of, I think it was 15 plays in the fourth quarter. They blitzed as many times in the fourth quarter as they did any other quarter that they played. They played more man than zone, so they can go into a soft shell. All of this is just the reality. That's what the numbers say, the facts say. So I don't think defensively they got less aggressive. I think it just, New Orleans went back in protection more. They went into shotgun. They were in shotgun every snap in the fourth quarter. And what that did, very simply, was it put them in a position where they were able to get quick passes away with more max protection, and that negates the Atlanta pass rush. That's what happened defensively. It's that simple.
All right, one more on what went down yesterday, because I think it's worth noting, and I said this at the top of the show, was essentially that there is redemption in what I saw from Arthur Smith yesterday. I think he handled my particular question about the way he handled the post-game press conference as good as you can, and owned it and was able to quickly turn the page from it so it's not lingering on. But I think that speaks a lot to his leadership, his sort of fitness for the job of being a head coach in this league, and, how much he is going to be able to prepare his team for what's next. Because I think preparation was the key takeaway of what I took away from in game one, is that they were prepared to play that game. And I think they'll be prepared again this week.
Yeah, listen, they outplayed New Orleans. Like that's that was clear, right? They didn't finish the game like I just talked about. The players struggled in part because New Orleans made really good adjustments, and Jameis seemed to finally find some sort of rhythm in the fourth quarter. I think those things were the difference. I know there's a lot of back and forth on the 4th and 1 whether you should have punted or not. Well, if your argument is that defense wasn't stopping anybody, well, okay, except for the fact that if you get stopped, then you're pretty much giving them 15 yards and they can bleed the clock completely down. That's not what happened. Like that's why I would have done the same thing Arthur Smith did, by the way, in that situation. I would have punted, make them go 50, 60 yards because you're not expecting them to hit a 40-yard chunk play. And realistically, what happened there was a blown coverage. Right. And when there's a blown coverage, that does you in. Because if that doesn't happen, and you're able to keep them in bounds, then they're having to make a 60-yard field goal at best, and that's if Jameis gets everywhere down the field.
Right. And the other part of that, which people are neglecting, is simply this, is that 3rd down play, they made them burn their final timeout, right? And so now they have no timeouts, and the clock essentially becomes the 12th defender by putting them deep and making them go further down the field. That's the exact logic. If they had timeouts there, it's a different conversation. Because if they had timeouts, even if they had one timeout and they got to go 40 yards to get in field goal range, that's a huge lift. They had no timeouts. And as you said, it was a broken coverage. So I didn't hate the decision to punt. All that said, let's turn the page, and we'll do so in a second here. But first, a word from my friends at Coffee AM. Guys, I start my morning every day with Coffee AM. Coffees from around the world, Sumatra, Kenya, Costa Rica. You have heard me talk to you guys about them so much because they are the best small batch coffee roaster in America, and it's right here in Georgia. They are fresh, and they are fresh because they are roasted and shipped on the same day or very close to it. And again, you get all these flavored coffees, teas, espressos, blends, whatever you want. They've got something for you. Go to coffeeam.com/locked-on and check out the full menu of coffees, teas, and gift sets. Again, coffeeam.com/locked-on. Use the promo code locked-on to get 15% off your first order at checkout of coffees, teas, and gift sets at coffeeam.com. Best small batch coffee roaster in America. All right, Mike, back to the Falcons here. I want to play a little game with you in a moment called Anomaly or Reality, but I do want to ask about the Rams here because you're getting a very tough opponent, obviously, one that's coming off a loss, as there's 3 extra days to prepare. This is one of these redemption games for Arthur Smith in a sense where you look at this and you go, I feel like teams in years past, towards the end of Dan Quinn and even last year, get blown out in this spot. Again, I think the expectations, and I talked about this for months now, just be competitive. Be competitive in every game. Don't get totally outmanned, outmatched. If you can be competitive with this roster, that's 45th, remember, out of 32 teams, 45th. If you can be competitive with this roster, then I think that says a lot. And how they play this game, to me, is more important than the results of this game.
Yeah, to an extent. I think if they're able to build on what we saw, which is have a balanced offense, which is what Arthur Smith is looking for, run the ball effectively, continue to get pass rush, because that's one thing that we know is vulnerable right now with the Rams is they got Matthew Stafford sacked 17 times, hit 15 times. I've said it, the Bills are a different class of defense than the Falcons and really most other teams in the NFL, so that's not a knock on the Falcons. But if the Rams are able to produce a similar type.
Oh, we just lost Mike. Let's see if we can get him back. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay.
You're back in. Technology rules. Go ahead.
Technology. But what I was saying is if Atlanta can get a similar type of production this Sunday that they got last night, pass rush was, quarterback pressure was, that to me is a win because what it also does is it shows consistency and it shows that it's not just one game against the Saints that you did it. It's against another team as well, and I think that gives you something really to build on. That's all you. To me, that's what you want to see: win or loss. Like you understand what the season is, but you want to see continue. You want to see improvement. And you saw a lot of that against New Orleans. And listen, I think it's going to be a tough game because you're going to get tough. You're going to get an angry Rams team that got embarrassed.
Yes,
like especially on offense. That offense is pretty darn good, and you have an offensive-minded head coach in Sean McVay. Like that, I think it's going to be a tough go for the Falcons on Sunday, but at the same time, like I was impressed by what I saw from them against the Saints. So we'll see what happens. Listen, I think you could see any range of outcomes here against the Rams, because if the Rams can't protect, well, that the Falcons have a shot. I truly believe that. Now, I don't know how much they're going to be able to move the ball, but one thing we saw was that Arthur Smith can scheme to protect Mariota and use kind of the scheme as that 6th or 7th pass blocker to buy them more time, along with Mariota's legs, the 5 offensive linemen, and if they keep somebody in. And that can help when you've got a defense that has Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd like that. They're a really good Rams defense. It's going to be a true test for this Falcons offense. But I'll tell you what, Mark, if they can show they can protect again, because they didn't allow a sack against the Saints, then I think you can actually say, hey, this offensive line is pretty good. And again, that's another thing that you can say you can build on, because most of these guys are young and under contract in theory for a little while.
I think the point simply is continue to progress forward every game. And in the 30,000-foot view, and I said this yesterday, you have to keep a 30,000-foot view at this team. You can't get wrapped up in an individual game as meaning more than anything else. They're not expected to be a playoff team. Don't worry about them losing close games or whatever. I think it's more about them being competitive in the big scheme and being able to show that if you can be competitive with this roster, when you have room to build on it next year, you're going to be a lot better. All right, let's play a little fun game here as we finish up, okay? And this is about, because week 1 is the grand overreaction week in the NFL, right? We all do it. We try to figure out. Okay, so we're going to play anomaly or reality. I'm going to give you a scenario. You tell me whether game 1 was just an anomaly or it's likely a reality for the rest of the year. The ability to rush, let's not even say for 200 yards, which they did in game 1, but the ability to have a rushing game that is in the top 15 of the league. Anomaly or reality?
That's a tough one, only because I think they want to split more Damian Williams and Cordero Patterson, and we didn't see that. And we saw Cordero Patterson had a very hot hand, and they can't run Cordero Patterson 22 times a game. I'm going to say reality, because I think if you are able to balance Patterson and Damian Williams, eventually work in Tyler Algier, work in Avery Williams, who I thought didn't look bad in his limited work, I think that there's the capability of having a top 15 rushing offense for sure, based off of what we saw on Sunday. I think that's reality.
The Falcons had 4 sacks in game 1. Well, that is not a reality for anybody to average that over the course of a 17-game season. But if I set the over-under right now at 33 sacks, is that an anomaly or a reality the way they were able to get to the quarterback? This is a team that barely got to 20 the last.
Right, no, I know that. I'm gonna go with anomaly, and I only say that because of the quarterbacks that they're gonna play and the offenses they're gonna play, and they have a lot of mobile quarterbacks coming down the road, and it's much harder to necessarily sack a mobile quarterback. So I think that those numbers will be skewed a little bit more. Plus, they're playing a few teams that are run heavy, and some offenses like Tampa Bay's, for instance, where Tom Brady gets the ball out so fast that you're just not sacking him more than once or twice, even with their struggles on the offensive line, because frankly, what you're going to do is if you get a 2-yard stop there, that's a win when you're playing Tampa because of their offense. So I think that's anomaly, but I think that the pass rush will be markedly better, and I think it's possible they get close to that number for sure, but I don't think that they would surpass it.
All right, final one for you here. A.J. Terrell was beat often late in the game. A.J. Terrell taking a step back like he did in week 1. Anomaly or reality?
Reality. And that's –
wow.
No, but I don't think it's a big step back. I don't think it's a big step back. But the truth of it is this. I think the Falcons do want to play more man. And we saw them play more man than zone in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, shoots down that, I'm going to say narrative. I'm going to sound like Arthur Smith, but it shoots down the belief that they went to a soft zone, which I think you and I both heard a lot about. Well, that's not true. They actually played more man than zone in the fourth quarter. And if you're playing man, by playing man, you're being more aggressive. So I think the more man they play, it's going to be harder on A.J. Terrell, because last year some of those numbers were inflated by the amount of cover 2 and the amount of zone they played. A.J. Terrell's a great cornerback. He's one of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL. But if they want to play more man, there are going to be days that he does struggle. And listen, Michael Thomas is a heck of a receiver. People just forget that because he hasn't played for 2 years. But when he last played and was healthy, he was the best receiver in the NFL. So no shame on A.J. Terrell because he got beat by Michael Thomas like most guys do. So
sure.
I think A.J. Terrell will take a step back because I think they're going to try and be more aggressive, and that's just going to lead to more one-on-one situations. So I don't think he's going to have those gaudy numbers necessarily like he did a season ago, but I think he's going to be just as good of a cornerback, if not better, in terms of what he's able to give the defense.
He is Mike Rothstein of ESPN, ESPN.com, Falcons reporter. Always great to talk to you, brother. Thank you so much for the time this morning, and I will see you out in Flowery Branch. Well, actually, you're heading out to California, but we'll see when the Falcons return. So great to talk to you as always, bro.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. We will take a time out, come back, touch on the Atlanta Braves and the closing situation next, right here on A to Z.